let's wait for the others to join in. I see. Let's wait for the others to join in. I see students are still joining in.
Yes, good morning, students, and welcome to the class of SAP. Good morning, Nagraj sir, and a warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you so very much, madam. Good morning.
Yes, sir. You may please start the session, sir.
Sure. So a very good morning and a very warm welcome to all the attendees. As usual, let's wait for the others to join in. I see students are still joining in. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please post it in your Q&A section. Whatever you have, whatever session you had any doubts, please let me know. We can revisit the topics also, right? So do not feel that the questions are repetitive, and it's absolutely okay. You can ask me the same question any number of times, as long as you are clear conceptually. Okay, I'll be very much available, but I would have muted myself. I will allow the students to join in. We'll wait for a couple of more minutes. Then we will start. Okay. All right, I think we can start. We have 150 as I see on my screen. Okay. So yesterday, as I said, you can keep posting in your queries. So one important thing what I understood yesterday was people were asking what is the transaction code? Is it the same thing as that of the company code? No. A company code is a legal entity in SAP, and the transaction code is so it is also referred to as a T code. As you can see on my screen, it is also called as a T code. So normally professionals, they use a T code. And you will, once you get into the SAP environment, you will see a lot of people using what is a T code for that, what is a T code for this. So what exactly is a T code? It is nothing but a transaction code. And what is a transaction code? It's a shortcut key to enter into transactions. Suppose my job is to enter the purchase invoice. So if I want to get into that activity, so I should tell SAP that this is the specific activity what I want to do on the SAP system. So I inform the SAP system that I want to enter the vendor invoice. So this code through which I tell the SAP system that I want to do a specific activity is referred to as the transaction code or T code. Now, as a part of the standard SAP system, SAP has got a huge set of transaction codes for each and every transaction in each and every module. So you can very well imagine it runs into some lakhs. If you ask me as to what is the number of transaction codes, I would say I don't know the perfect number because it is such a huge number. So as far as the finance is concerned, probably I can tell you a very few of them. Clear? Now, based on the requirement of my implementing partner, he may want to customize the transaction codes. Now, what do I mean by customizing transaction code? Now, suppose I have a transaction code to enter the vendor invoice. Now, as a part of the standard SAP system to complete the activity of entering the purchase invoice displays certain information. Some information like you might have to enter the cost center, you might have to enter some other data. So if a particular department is purchasing the raw materials, you might have to enter the owner department, that is the cost center. So here I'm purchasing the materials, raw materials for, let us say, for the painting department. So painting department is now my owner department, which is identified as a cost center in SAP. Okay. Now, in one of the projects, the implementing partner may want to enter the cost center or any other information, or he might make the entry into a specific information block as mandatory. In the sense, if I'm purchasing any kind of a raw material, one implementing partner may want to make the cost center information as mandatory. That means the end user or the employee who's responsible for entering the vendor invoices or the purchase invoices cannot save the entry or cannot save the transaction in the SAP system without providing some information. This is called as your. Now, if I want to include some fresh information from fresh additional information into the same transaction, I might want to customize the transaction itself. I might want to totally change the design of the vendor invoice screen itself, specific to only my project. I'm not disturbing the standards. So in that case, what happens? The implementing partner and the implementing company may want to customize the transaction code. Like this, customization may not end only for the transactions or for the transaction codes. It may be applicable to even the reports. I may want to customize the reports because as a part of the standard SAP system delivers a lot of standardized reports, which is generally wanted by the business. But if you want to customize to a specific implementing partner, you might have to enter into customizing the reports also. So normally the standard rule is whenever you talk about the customizing any information, you always prefix the transaction code or the reports or any other thing with a Z. Normally it is a Z or a Z. All right. Now this was very interesting as far as the yesterday's discussion was concerned. So I just wanted to add a couple of more points. So yesterday we looked at what constitutes the accounts payable. So first and the foremost starts with the vendors. It deals with the vendors. So your accounts payable module starts with your vendors. And how does the whole activity start? Now, how did your finance activity start? By the creation of a company code. Clear? Now, how does the accounts payable start? So each and every module or each and every submodule starts with the creation of the specific master data. Okay, if you're talking about the purchase module or the production module, it starts with the material master. Clear? So if you want to start, if you are talking about the asset accounting, it starts with the asset master. If you start talking about the journal voucher entry, you start with the chart of accounts. Chart of accounts is also, I'm using this because we are already familiar with what is a chart of accounts. So each module or each submodule starts with the creation of the relevant master records. Okay. Now, so as far as the accounts payable module is concerned, we start with the creation of the vendor master records. Okay. Now, when I spoke to you about the vendor master data, I said I differentiated the vendors. Like I may not have to create the master records for all the vendors which my business is dealing with. So yesterday we spoke about small time vendors. Your stationery vendor, your coffee and tea supplier, or maybe a very, very small businesses which you carry on with on an everyday basis. But the volume of the business is not that huge. So you might not necessarily create a master record for such vendors. So in that case, you create or rather you carry out the transactions with such vendors only from the finance perspective. And you also end up dealing with vendors with whom you conduct a huge volume of business, your raw materials. So these are very, very critical vendors simply because they are the heart of your business. If such vendors, they stop the supply of raw materials, your business stops. You cannot do any business. So can you just imagine what happens to your business? Your entire work stops. Your machinery lies idle. Your manpower lies idle. Your productivity becomes zero. Your profitability becomes zero. Correct? So such vendors with whom you deal, they have to be necessarily created as master records in your SAP system. Now, suppose I buy raw material number 1 with vendor number 1, A Limited. I buy raw material number 2 with vendor B, Messrs. B Limited. I buy raw material number 3 with vendor C Limited. I buy some spares, I buy some consumables with vendor number D or measures E Limited, D Limited, whatever. So such vendor information should be held in something called as a master record. Now again, based on the nature, again, I can have different variations as far as I consider this vendors. For example, I may be dealing with foreign vendors also. I may be importing some raw materials. So I can basically have a very simple categorization of my vendor master into import vendor group and local vendor group. Yesterday, somebody was asking me as to what is NESW. It is nothing but I categorize my vendors based on their geographical location. Northern region, southern region, eastern region, western region. Yeah, I can also have this differentiation. I can also have this categorization. I can also divide my vendors based on the business volume, what I generate. Why I'm repeating this is this applies to your customers also. Because our next topic is going to be AR, accounts receivables, right? So accounts receivables also follows the same logic. But instead of the vendors, we'll be talking about customers, receivables, which are our which is our sundry debtors and which is our asset. Our receivables become the asset and our payables become the liabilities, sundry creditors. Okay. Now, as far as a business volume is concerned, I divide the vendors into the business blocks. So people who are doing businesses worth more than 50 lakhs, I categorize them as high priority vendors. Okay. From the vendors whom I purchase somewhere between 15 lakhs to 50 lakhs, they become the medium priority vendors for me. And anything less than 15 lakhs, they become the low priority vendors for me. It all depends on the size of my business. For some businesses, 15 lakhs could be the minimum amount. But for some businesses, even 1 lakh could be the minimum amount. So it all depends on what kind of a implementing partner you are bringing in SAP. Now, you further break open the data once you create the master records for any specific vendor. You can break open the data into 3 different areas, 3 different views. One is the general information block, which gives you the information about the vendor name, vendor address, contact person, contact number. Yeah. Now, finance specific information. Here we provide finance related information, that is company code data or even the finance related data. You can also alternatively call it as the finance block of information. So for a vendor, small time vendor, again, I'm coming back to the small time vendor. It is enough for you to construct the master data only at these 2 levels. But if you're talking about the critical vendors, you have the data belonging to the material management module also. They are the owners of this block. The finance people are owners of this block, and they are responsible for this block of information. So the material management and the finance, they take up the ownership of their respective areas. Now, what is the first and the foremost information that we give as far as the finance related data for the vendor is concerned? The reconciliation account. I think you are aware of what is a recon account, reconciliation account. So if you want me to repeat that, I will definitely do it, because I am having an extensive repetition of this topic because the same concepts are applicable to your customer also. Even the customer will have these three areas of data, these three blocks. Clear? Now, so let us not talk about this level of information as of now, because when we will talk about this, when we talk about the integration, the business processes. Clear? Now, what is the most important and the most powerful thing what AP module does, or rather what it should do? Something called as very, very interesting automatic payment program. So what is the word automatic itself? Is an indicator that the process of releasing the payments to n number of vendors should be automated, should be carried out automatically. Or else, just think about it. Why would I need SAP? Why would I invest on a system which does not reduce my manual work? Clear? So that is the reason as to why SAP has provided with something very, very wonderful, very, very powerful, called as your automatic payment program. Shortly, it is referred to as APP. You can also call it as automatic payment procedure, whatever is convenient for you. Now, since I said this program should automatically take care of the payments to the vendors accurately on a timely basis, because once there is a delay in release of the payments to the vendors, you know the impact. I don't have to repeat. So what happens if the vendor is not paid? You know the repercussions, you know the implications. Now, so what should this automatic payment program achieve? What should it do? Or what is it expected to do? First thing, it should pick up all the open items. Now I'll start using typical SAP terms because I feel probably by now you would have become a little comfortable with these terms. Open items. What are these open items? Invoices which are pending for payment. So I need to release the payment to clear the invoices. Okay, now, so what kind of invoices should it pick up? Should it pick up all the invoices? Now, suppose I have entered into an understanding with my vendor saying that after I can have the credit time till 15 days. So I have time to pay for the invoice for 15 to 20 days. Now, should the program pick up this invoice which still has some discount days? Why should I pay this invoice? The system should skip this invoice. But again, one more point. Now, suppose I have also entered into an understanding with the vendor saying that suppose if I make a payment within 15 days of you raising the purchase invoice, I want to enjoy some discount. Say if at all you're purchasing goods worth around 75 lakhs, even 1 or 2% is a huge amount for the business. Even if you enjoy the discount of say 2 to 5% of 75 to 80 lakhs, you can imagine what is the amount that you're going to save. So the system should also understand if at all I enjoy the discount, the payment run should pick this invoice also. Clear? So should pick the payment terms, should pick the discount terms. And for some reason, if I do not want to release a payment to a specific vendor, can I block? Yes, the system should also give me the flexibility or should also give me an option to block invoices or block the payment to a specific vendor. The reasons could be any. Okay, maybe he is not keeping up to the date. Maybe he is supplying low quality goods. Whatever. So even before we even talk about the payment, how are you releasing the payments? Through the bank. So now I bring in another concept. Along with the vendor master data, you should also have the bank master data. Correct? I should have constructed the business bank in my SAP system. This is referred to as house bank or house banks in SAP. Okay, typical job of a consultant, very, very critical also. Yeah. Now, you should configure or you should set up the bank in such a way that it picks up the payment methodology also. Right? So how do you pay? What is the methodology? Are you paying it through a check, NEFT, RTGS, whatever? System should be in a position to finally generate a financial entry. If the payment program has picked up 300 vendors successfully and it has made a payment, it has released the payment. Finally, the system should also create a financial entry. So how does the system tell you that these particular invoices have been cleared? It is through a clearing document. It is through a clearing document that SAP clears the open invoices. Again, a typical SAP term, open invoices. So invoices which are pending payments. So far, so good. Why am yesterday afternoon also I repeated this, but the reason for the repetition is the same thing holds good for your customers also. But as regards the customers, we are receiving the payment. But in our case, in the current scenario, since we are talking about the vendors, we are responsible for making the payments. Okay? And reducing the liability. Okay? And there also, okay, let me not talk about AR now. What should the SAP system deliver? Anything more? Absolutely yes. Now, SAP has a wonderful way to strike understanding between you and your vendor or you and your customer also. How? Suppose I have an outstanding liability of say 25 lakhs. So I need to pay to the vendor 25 lakhs. Now I send him a statement, right? I send him a statement to confirm whether I need to pay 25 lakhs. Clear? Because probably he would have sent some more invoices, which I wouldn't have received, or I would have released payments which has not yet affected his bank, affected his statement. So like this, so many things can happen, but this is the first and the foremost information what an auditor will ask you. Balance confirmation. The same concept is very, very much available for customers also. Logical, right? Don't you have to strike a balance with your customers also? Suppose say I tell him, you need to pay me 65 lakhs. Will he agree? So he will also check his books. He will also check his transactions and confirm back the balance. confirm the balance back to me. So here you should make note of one thing. He may be using another system. Not necessarily, I will not conduct business thinking that he should also have an SAP system. The vendor or the customer with whom I'm dealing should also have an SAP system. Why should he have an SAP system? It is up to him. It is his business decision whether he wants or does not want to have an SAP system. But I'm talking from my end. So what SAP system or what I can achieve through the SAP system as far as your AP module is concerned. Okay. So one point of reconciliation is your goods, why the balances may not confirm. You would have received the goods, probably you would have not sent the invoice, or you would have sent the invoice and probably there is still some balance of materials. So like this, the system also offers you a concept of GRIR reconciliation automatically, because whenever you enter the goods receipt, what is goods receipt? The process of you receiving the raw material supplied by the vendor to your security gate. Right? So you are accepting the materials. See, as far as the quality check is concerned, that comes later. But as far as whatever you have supplied, you bring in those items into your stores. This is your goods receipt. Okay. So far we have just refreshed or we have touched upon AP. Any questions till now, or do you want to take just a moment? Let me pick up a few questions if you have. Students, was this repetition useful?
So there is only one question which is there in the published section. You can take that up.
Okay, man. Okay. Give one example using posting key and with a transaction entry. You might have to wait since you're asking me to show this with a transaction entry. Okay. You might have to wait. So what about document splitting? Dear students, please wait for this concept. But since the question has already come up, I will explain what is document splitting theoretically. Very good question, in fact, but probably if it had come a little later, I would have really appreciated this question. But even now, I appreciate this question. Document splitting. OK, why do you use document splitting? Now, somebody has asked me a very interesting question. Guys, please make note that even if you do not understand this concept, it is still OK. I will repeat this any number of times. OK, so since the question has come up prematurely, a very, very important concept in SAP. Now, let us take you have a now. Let me say production department or let me say I'm purchasing raw materials. Raw material number 1. Guys, did you understand this? I'm purchasing raw material number 1, raw material number 2, and this is required by production department A This is required by production department B. Clear? Now, I would say now both this raw materials, they are subjected to the same input tax. And I have only one general ledger account. Income tax account, it's only one. Obviously, right? Now, suppose you want to have a balancing act. Now, whenever I'm drawing up the report for production department A or even production department B, I also want to have the load what has been taken up by production A of the input tax. Let me say the input tax is around for both the purchases. I encounter say some 55,000 rupees as the tax, or say even 5,500. Now, how much of this tax should I give it to production A? How much of the tax should the production department B bear? What is the load? Don't I have to have this to balance the input tax? Just give me a minute. So sorry. Now, do you understand? Now, suppose I am taking up the individual reports for department A, department B. So should the whole of 5,500 rupees be loaded against department A? Or should the whole of 5,500 rupees loaded on production department B? My reports won't match. That is the reason as to why you have the concept of document splitting. So you need to do certain settings for this document splitting to be active. So it's a wonderful principle, right? A very, very good question. In fact, I hope I explained it as clearly as I wanted to. Was this concept clear? This is where your document splitting comes into the concept. I have not said how. A lot of settings have to be done by the consultant to enable this. Did you understand? Think about it. And please confirm if you have understood the concept of document splitting. I hope this was clear. Document splitting. OK. Thank you. So please provide an example of how does GRIR look like in SAP? How does GRIR look like? I mean, can you please clarify this question? See, GRIR is nothing but, if at all you want me to explain as to what is GRIR, I need to get into the whole cycle. See, GR is nothing but your goods receipt. IR is nothing but your invoice receipt. So every purchase in SAP gets routed through your GRIR clearing account. GRIR account. GRIR is nothing but a general ledger account. All right. Which is just as any other general ledger account in your operational chart of accounts. Is this what you expected? As of now, I will stop the explanation for the GRIR. It is nothing but a simple general ledger account designed by the consultant in the operational chart of accounts. And how does this function? It is through a integration cycle. Clear? Service entry sheet. Just hold on. Document splitting is clear. Excellent. Very good. Actually, it's a very, very important concept, right? I hope the GRIR question was also answered. Okay. Just hold on with this. All right. So we will just take a quick 2-minute break just to understand whatever has happened today, yesterday, the previous sessions. And most welcome to ask me any questions. I'll be very much available. Okay. I'll just open the relevant topic. So we had finished AP, accounts payable. So as you can see, you have the same things achieved as far as the customer is also concerned. What we read about the vendor, same thing applies to the customer also. Okay. So you also have so just go through this. Okay, I will not spend much time because this is all very, very general. You can read them since most of you would have got the access to the enable, right? So please go through. As I said, I've already explained AP in detail. So whatever is exclusive to accounts receivable is only what I'm going to take. But I wouldn't still mind repeating how does the AR function start? You want me to do that? I'll be more than happy to start from the scratch. Clear? You can read them through. So just like you formalize your contract with the identified vendors, what is a document? It is a purchase order. You also enter into an agreement with your customer through something called as a sale order. Clear? So this is where your Fiori also comes in. Fiori. We were talking about a concept called as Fiori in the very initial sessions. So this is you create an application in your mobile so that the salesman does all the relevant things as far as his job is concerned via that particular app related to entering the sales invoice or sorry, sale orders. Clear? So you can click on each icon so that it gives you the inside meaning of what it actually means. Can you see that? The place where I'm moving the cursor? It all starts with the creation of a customer master record. So just like we started with the vendor master record in AP, we start talking about the customers by the creation of the relevant master data. So basically, it is an integration between your sales module in SAP called the SD module, sales and distribution module, and your finance module. So it is how the finance and the sales department or the finance and the sales modules in SAP talk to each other. This is the meaning of the word integration. Clear? If you want to listen to the audio, just give me a moment. I will stop sharing and reshare.
Transactions. For working with master records. For communication with the customer. For the sales department. Click on each icon to view the description.
Did you hear to the faint audio? I mean, I don't know if the audio was also clear.
So audio was clear, sir.
Perfect. So as it says, click on each and every icon to understand the meaning of what exactly each icon means.
A business partner is an entity that plays a role in your company's enterprise. ABP can be a natural person, an organization, or a group. Regarding accounts receivable, we will only focus on a natural person or an organization.
So we already know the concept of business partner. It is no more a customer or a vendor. How HANA looks at the customers or vendors is through a concept called as BP. BP is nothing but your business partner. Clear? And this concept is applicable to your HANA SA. Wonderful.
Click each of the organizational elements to learn more.
Now, when we spoke about the AP module, we came across something called as the purchase organizational level of information in the vendor master data. And what did I say? It is not the finance people who are responsible for it, but it is the ownership of that block of data lies with the material management professionals. Here again, we can break open the customer master record. Just hold on. I will. This cycle, what we said as source to pay as far as the vendors were concerned, it is called as lead to cash. The cycle, the integration cycle between the finance and the SD module, sales and distribution module, or the customer module is called as the lead to cash cycle in SAP. Yeah, you might be asked a question. This is typically your HANA terminology. This was source to pay. I'm sorry, O2C, order to cash. In ECC, it was order to cash, O2C. it was called as order to cash cycle, but in HANA, it is called as lead to cash. Clear? So again, the master data is concerned. Again, 3 levels. Instead of purchase organization, it becomes sales organization, sales organizational block of information, which is who are the owners, is the module, FI module. This is your integration. Okay. So what are we looking at from the customer angle? We will discuss once we come back from a break. Janvi madam, can we take a brief break?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. So now it's 12 p.m. Students will take a short break of 10 minutes. We'll be back by 12:10. Just take a quick break and be back.
Sure.
In the meantime, students, if you have any questions pertaining to the topic, please post it. We'll take it up after the break. Sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. We can resume the session, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Yeah. So now we have just begun to have a look at the customer master data. Okay. Now, just like we had a breakup of the vendors into say different account groups. Here also, it is not necessary for us to create the master data for all the customers. Okay. So it all depends on, suppose I'm selling a 100 rupees or a 200 rupees item to a customer. Do I create a master data for such customers? Absolutely no. Right? Again, I can have a classification on my business volume, export customers, local customers. I had import vendors. I can have export customers. I may be sending my products to an outside country. I may be selling my goods across the international borders. So I can categorize based on the business volume, business location, business volume.